Hello there. I've just been doing my my shopping in Chesterfield, so I'm sitting here in the middle of town, just gathering my thoughts on if I've got everything. I've been to Marks and Spencer's, I've been to Boots the chemist, and I've been to Pound Stretcher. So yeah, I've had to do a bit of a tour around. Sorry, there's been very few videos going out in the last couple of days. I've been quite busy and it's been quite hectic. So I do try and get a video out every day, even if it's just a short one in terms of where I am. Something I want to talk to you about very quickly this morning is age, growing older, and what it consists of, quite honestly. When I was very young, as a teenager, I used to think people in their 20s were probably quite old. When I was in my 20s, obviously thought people in their 30s were very old, and so on and so on. Now, when I was young, obviously the years seemed to stretch out. They were long. It was a long time away. If you said you've got to wait 2 years for something, that was forever. That was a lifetime. And I found that going through my 20s, it did take a long time. And likewise, as I was going through my 30s, it was very, very similar. And then when I hit 40, I thought, oh, I'm getting to a middle age now. I'm over the top, as it were. And I used to then think, well, you know, I've got still quite a long way to go. But from 40 to 50, I found went quite quickly. And I could always remember my mum and dad telling me, you know, oh, you know, the years fly by, the years fly by. And I used to think, well, they're not flying by for me. That was when I was young. But from 40 to 50, I found time went quite quickly. I sort of think, well, yeah, where did all that time go? And then from 50 to 60, even quicker. It was fun. It was absolutely, well. And now I'm 63 already. I'm not 60, I'm actually 63, 64 next birthday in May next year. And I was sort of thinking, wow, you know, it's really, really shooting by now. And I remember my mother in her 80s was saying, make the most of your time, make the most of your time, Simon. So this is really, and I think I have made the most of my time. I mean, you know, I have a good quality of life generally. I don't, you know, it's, you wake up happy, and yes, you have frustrations, but you wake up with always a plan in mind. And I'm surrounded by the people I love, so I'm happy in it. But the time factor of how time flies. Something else which makes me laugh a little bit is also the day. Sometimes you wake up and because I'm not working, you know, on a regular basis now, you sort of wake up and you think, what day is it? And you sort of think for a while and think, oh, it's Wednesday or it's Thursday or whatever it is. And I can remember being young and thinking as a manager and thinking, look at that guy over there. When I was being critical of someone, look at that guy over there. He doesn't even know what day it is. And now I'm sort of in that position where I wake up and I sort of think, what day is it? So I'm sort of at the end of that in terms of catching it. And it makes me think about time quite a lot. And a little story I may have told once before. It's something that used to happen on a regular basis in South Africa, because I've heard various versions of the story and I've experienced it myself. When I first went to South Africa, I was a young 26-year-old, and I was called into head office at Checkers. It was the supermarket chain I was working for as a manager, as a new recruit manager. And I was called into head office for a day to actually spend a bit of time at head office and get to know people there. I was there for a few days, I think. And on one of these particular days, there was a retirement party for one of the people, young or not young, one of the old black guys who used to take tea around all the offices. Now these were old offices, you know, I'm talking about 70 office, you know, there weren't computers in those days as such. It was we're talking about 1981. So it was sort of 5-story, 6-story big office building in the centre of Johannesburg. And this guy, his name was Jacob, I think, and he used to push a tea trolley around all the floors, you know, providing tea, coffee, and certain other refreshments as well. And he would be doing this basically all day, you know, and he would be knocking, you know, going to every office and, you know, topping up people's tea, coffee, whatever they were requiring during the course of the day. Now, it was his retirement. He was, I don't know how old he was. He looked possibly older than he was. He looked like he was in his late 70s, but he was probably younger than that. And it was the managing director of the company, a chap called Rex Glanville, and he was had a group of, quite a large group of people in the canteen, and he was talking about Jacob's life at Commissioner Street head office in Chequers, and what he'd done, his life, etc. He joined in his 20s, and he'd been there all this time, and he'd done a great job. And he was presented with this watch. It looked like whether it was a gold watch or not, I don't know, but it was a nice watch, and with his name on it and date he'd retired and everything else. And everyone clapped, the usual thing. And then Jacob asked if he wanted to say a few words, and I thought, oh, okay, it's been interesting. So he got up and he talked quite eloquently, actually, and he talked about, you know, he'd been there all those years. He learnt the job from somebody else who's no longer there, and he would walk each floor, and he knew at certain times of the day when certain people wanted their tea at this time, and then they wanted their coffee at 11 at this time, and then they wanted their tea again at lunchtime at 1 o'clock at this time, and then it was afternoon tea and they wanted it at this time, and then there was a cup of tea or coffee and they were at this time, and he went through the whole process of time. And then he said, I came into this life as a young person, where I come from in the Transkei, living on the veldt, and I'd get up when the sun rises, and I'll go to sleep when the sun goes down. And when I am hungry, I will eat some food if I can, and when I am thirsty, I will have a drink. And that is how I would develop, and that is my life. That is how I would work. And then when I came here, it was all about time. This time you must have tea, this time you must have coffee, this time. So I started learning about time, not when the sun rises or when the sun goes down, but when it is time for you to have your tea, when it is time for you to have your coffee. And he says, and it always used to make me think, how strange, you know, when people they're thirsty at certain times rather than thirsty when they're thirsty. And he said, anyway, he went through all that eloquently, and it was well put. And he says, now I'm retiring, I can go back to my life in the Transkei, and you have given me a watch. And I wonder if this is something that I need. And it was, but it was so eloquently put, and it was so it made me think. It made me think, crikey, you know, here's a guy who's he's obviously thought about this before he got it. He probably knew what he was going to get, but it was so well put together, and the whole room was silent. And in the end, they clapped and they cheered and they smiled and they all gave him hugs and everything else. But it brought home a very strong message from the retired tea boy of the company in terms of how we take on time. And yeah, just a little message I wanted to get out there this morning. Anyway, gotta go. Mummy is waiting for Daddy. See you later. Bye bye.